execution detail that, again, I'm just not aware, to your point, of people having gone to, is that, like how do you prioritize the work once it hits the fan?
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to mention that we did kind of have in our back pocket and discussed, although I recall doing this on the med device side it wasn't a malware or anything. It was a product shortage issue. I don't recall doing it on the consumer side, but it was something in our toolkit, was essentially to take from our CPFR or our global planning system what we would expect the demand to be.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're, and this I think is a good thing to think about too. And actually, in terms of, if you wanted to get to sort of the next level of detail and you wanted to do it in a balanced way that wasn't going to take an astronomical amount of effort to kind of figure out and test. I mean, for the most part in fast-moving consumer goods, and especially if you're doing CPFR, you've got a pretty good idea based on seasonally adjusted historical demand profiles, what you're going to be sending every week. At least, from a statistical standpoint, you can say, look, here are the SKUs. I know I'm going to ship at minimum at least this volume up every week. So if you literally were dead in the water, and this actually did happen to us on the med surg side, based actually on a problem with kind of a perfect storm of some implementation problems and some product supply problems among regions, that we actually then in that case ended up, and we'd completely lost visibility. We actually ended up taking that approach, and that became sort of part of as I said, the overall tool in the toolkit to say, look, like if you can't do anything else, at least send me what you would have sent me anyway, and that's not that hard to figure out based on what you've done in your planning system. So there's potentially a lot of data there that I think can sometimes get underutilized, especially if it's not thought through in advance how you want to take advantage of it.
Okay, it's interesting. I think we've thought about it. And my concern, of course, is that if you had been Mondelez, right, that planning system probably wouldn't have. Nothing was talking to each other. I think that was the main issue. But what do we need to say, sort of month to month, quarter to quarter? Almost in hard copy, what are some of the trends that we normally have? Because if we truly can't access anything,
that's
a point of view.
Yeah. You've been working deep in this area, and I'm sure. So I had a client. It was a pharma client actually, and one of the things I was definitely going to share in this context, and it sounds like you probably are aware of this already, is they had great BCPs. They were infected by WannaCry, and their BCPs though were all on SharePoints, and they lost access to their SharePoints, and probably a third to half the company lost access to their laptops. So they're lined up in the parking lots re-imaging laptops, and they're like, well, let's go to the BCP, let's go to the SharePoint and get it, but then nobody could get it. So what's interesting about this? Yeah, I mean, I remember, it's funny when I got this, I haven't thought about this for a while, but 10 years ago, like I was one of the people who used to drive around with a binder in the trunk of my car, a hard copy binder, and, a hard copy phone tree that said, well, like, what do we do, if we lose the site, if we lose the IT system? So certainly as kind of a generic best practice in this world, I feel like everyone, hopefully has figured out by now that having those paper copybooks for all of this is really key. And to your point, if I were going to design this for someone now, I definitely would take that, sort of planning demand profile book and say, look, I know, I know what usually happens in, whatever week we're in now. Like I know what usually happens in week 16.
Yep.
Right. So in week 16, if I knew nothing else, what stuff would I send to which branches on which priority? And it strikes me again, if sort of the thought, and I'm speculating a bit, is to triangulate between, what's a reasonable level of detail to get to and executable, but kind of not boil the ocean. That actually might be really a good set of things to think about, and good advice for your client.